Where the hell's the clapper? You know, the guy had it in the room. He brought it all the way down here to my, or up here for him. He's coming from Puerto Rico, for crying out loud. Where's the clapper, John? Russian. You're not Ukrainian, or? Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And we were down with a bunch of clients downstairs for the 2-day live summit.
Well, I'll tell you this. Sorry, John's sound wasn't going, but I will tell you this, guys. Unbelievable place. This hotel is absolutely incredible. You can see the view behind me. If you can, I'm blocking it. I apologize. But so John's going to end up coming over here because of his sounds. There we got kind of a dueling thing. It's like dueling banjos. But anyway, why don't we hit the macro minute? Let's get after it. What in the hell?
I like the macro. I might have to point my other camera at least over this way.
We can't squeeze you in. We'll just go like this. We'll go back and forth. Oh, there we go. Nice. All right. Macro minute, John.
Macro.
Start it, Jared.
All right. We today, of course, saw crude oil again reverse from a really nice pop off of the lows of Wednesday of this week, Tuesday afternoon, Wednesday morning, to basically reverse course and go all the way back down to unchanged. So that's what I'm paying attention to right now, Pete.
Yeah, I think specifically you look at crude, you're talking about 81 down to 71, back up to 75, 76, then back down. I mean, the volatility there is absolutely outrageous. John's exactly right. That's your macro minute. That's everything on energy. Nat gas is approaching 6. Be aware of that as well.
Yep. And we even cut the macro minute short a little bit, folks.
Thank God.
Because too much talk about macro.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to talk now about Tesla, Pete.
That's right.
Because Tesla, it was one of the biggest winners for people, and thus anybody who shorted it, it was a big loser. In 2020, that short lost $40 billion. People that were actually shorted. I'm not just saying, oh, it went up by 40 billion. It went up by a lot more than that. But last year, it was about a $10 billion loser for the shorts. This year so far, the shorts have made over $11 billion, Pete. What do you think?
Well, it's down. It's sort of around that 171 level, and it's gotten absolutely hammered. To John's point, this was a $1.12 trillion market cap company earlier, March of last year. And here we are now, 600 and some odd billion. That says it all. But I think there's a lot of different things that are going on, still strong with Tesla. When you look at the valuation, John, this used to always be something that was trading triple digits. You know, you'd look at the PE and you go, well, they're unique. It's a tech company, not really a car company. I still stand by that. But you know what? At 100 something, it's pretty interesting on a PE. Now you're looking at something closer to a 45 PE. That makes it very, very interesting to me. And you look at the balance sheet, this is a cash-rich company. I think at these levels, I really like what I see here in Tesla as maybe an opportunity. I'm still kind of waiting to see some of the options actually tell us that we're right. I don't need to get the absolute bottom, but I'm watching this one very closely.
Yep. And remember, folks, for those of you who are option players, just like the people down here for this 2-day conference that we're doing, if you said, I like it here at 171, 174, but I really like it at 155, you could always sell a put. That's one of the ways that you could sort of obligate yourself to buy it if it falls to that level. And if it doesn't, you're Warren Buffett. You get to just keep the premium.
Right. Yeah, that's not so bad.
Second trade today, Pete, Ciena. CIEN, so Optical Networking. This stock, I looked back through our unusual activity, and unfortunately, we hadn't had any in this one. But boy, did they blow out the numbers, Pete. I mean, 8 cents was what the street was looking for. They came out with 61 cents. Just an explosive upside move. And, you know, they're getting rewarded, as Pete always says. What you don't want to do is say, well, yeah, but guidance going forward, If they would have said that, this thing would be on its back. It's not. It's up 20%.
They got supply chain. That's actually working out really well for them. To John's point, they crushed it on the earnings. I mean, I don't know that I've seen numbers that far off in a positive way. Absolutely incredible. Revenue as well. Then you look at the backlog, and they're looking at 4.4 billion in backlog. Everything seems to have turned the corner. This is a company that I think it becomes very, very interesting from a fundamental perspective. You got to like it. And the fact that now, after they've made a couple of acquisitions, I think they're going to be able to bring that within themselves as well and become something even bigger. So I'm very bullish on this name right now.
Yep, record backlog. That was the other real, I think, tell, if you will, Pete, because when you've got, 4.5 billion in backlog and you're not Boeing, that's a really good thing. Boeing, of course, has multiples of that, but to have a company of Ciena's size with 4.5 billion in back orders, that's another reason to hold on.
It's a big thumbs up.
All right, Disney. Now in this one, Pete, we've got Chapek was the head there for 3 years, and it was a rough 3 years.
Yeah.
I mean, they were down over those 3 years with the market up, so that is not good.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons may have been the strategy for streaming, because I remember when it came out, because I got it for free for 6 months with my Verizon. And not what they did also for people that weren't Verizon stakeholders or whatever, they gave you a $7 entry when Netflix was charging, 12 and so forth. Way too cheap. Obviously, that ended up hurting them. They raised it by $1. This is 2019 and 2021. I think they raised it by $1. Now they're going to $7.99 for the ad-supported model. I mean, I think that says it all. They offered it way too cheap. It was a loss leader. They decided to stop losing.
That was one of the very many mistakes from Chapek. He absolutely, in every way, it seemed he just couldn't get it right. Bob Iger is back. He needs a succession plan. They need a succession plan. They've got to figure out while Bob Iger's there. He signed a 2-year contract. They need to find out who's really in line. They say there are a couple of folks out there, maybe the CFO, some of these different names. I don't really like that. I think that they have to go through the process this first year, figure out who it's going to be, and then in year 2, start to groom him or her into that position to make sure that they can actually move forward. By the way, $52 billion in debt. That's unbelievable. If you take the cash portion out, still $41 billion in debt for Disney. That's something that happened under Chapek. That has to change, and I think they will address that as well. In any way they can, Disney will be a better company, I think, going forward than they were for the last 3 years.
Well, I'm sure the shareholders share that sentiment.
Yeah.
And I would say this is the first step in the right direction. You just basically tried to steal customers by making it way too cheap.
Yep.
And now you're recognizing that you need to get more money in. Although I got to wonder, Pete, who the heck can't pay the $10 and instead is going to pay $7.99 for an ad-supported version? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, but let's also remember the whole cord cutting process. Everybody wanted to get into that, right? Because you pay less. You get what you want, but you pay less. Huh, really? Take a look at some of the numbers sometime when you add everything you really do want to your bill. Is it really cheaper? I'm not so sure about that. Keep an eye on that.
All right. Lastly, we've got Lincoln National, and Lincoln LNC is trading down hard today. And they're down hard mainly, Pete, because they had a horrible earnings report.
Oh, God.
They were down 27% in the month of November for an insurance company, folks.
Yeah.
They were down 27%, and then they're down 10% today. And one of the reasons is they're saying, hey, look, we probably got to stop doing share buybacks and things like that. That was one of the things supporting the stock. So now people are saying, oh, if you don't want to own it, maybe we don't want to own it.
They only lost $2.6 billion in Q3. It's not really that big a deal, right? Holy crap. That is a big deal.
Yeah.
The free cash flow burn is absolutely outrageous. This was a company opposite of Ciena. It could not hardly have been worse than it was for Lincoln Financial or Lincoln National, rather. And it's unbelievable. When you look across at what their earnings looked like, what their revenue looked like, they did everything wrong. It was a brutal quarter. And as you said, they have to pause the buybacks. That's something that, you don't really like to hear that as a shareholder. I think that sent people to the aisles and said, you know what, we're going to leave. We're going out the exit. So that's why it's under so much pressure.
Yep. And one of the only things they got going for themselves, Pete, is that they've got the name on the stadium for the Philadelphia Eagles. So at least people see that. And people make fun of that because they say, well, the stadium curse and all that. Look at FTX. Look at all these companies that have failed. Yeah. Well, I think it's also something that does, in a positive way, impact people as far as it puts the brand in their head. And hopefully, if they can turn things around, female CEO over here, Pete,
Yep.
She needs to turn things around.
She does.
Hopefully she can. All right. I had Roblox, RBLX, but this is puts. This was downside bets that this one goes lower still. So we looked at the data again, and it looks like there might be some bad prints that they're taking off the tape. And for that reason, Pete, I'm going to back off of that a little bit. Yep. And throw it over to you with what your unusual is.
And that's a great example of discipline. If things are changing, you got to change with it. And that's exactly what John's talking about right now, because it looks like there are a few prints that might be changed. We'll see. I've got Nvidia. And what do I like about this company? Well, just about everything. It's been hammered. We all know that. It was 158 yesterday. It's 171.50 at the start of December. And here we are now trading at 162, 164 in that range. We had a very large buyer stepping in, 17,000 of Friday's expiring, which means the rest of this day and tomorrow, and then it's all done. $1.10 all the way up to about $1.80 for those calls. Pretty aggressive buying, but the market was absolutely ripping to the upside. Nvidia, this was an earlier buy, 17,000 of those. The stock is up 30+% since October, so it's been on a nice run to the upside. And we always talk about data and all the rest of it. That's where they're king. And I like this trade a lot. I jumped on it the second it hit. I like it going forward, but it expires tomorrow, so be aware of that.
Yep, short-term trades like that, you got to cut losses if you have them. Yep. So far, this one looks like it's moving in the right direction. And you got to take profits quickly, too. So be aware, folks. All right, Pete, from the sports side of things, what do you got?
Well, you can see we got Von Miller up there. And here's what's going on. Von Miller is one of the best pass rushers in the history of the NFL. As a matter of fact, of the players that are playing right now, he leads the entire NFL. He's got the record for the Denver Broncos. Then he went last year with the Super Bowl champs. Then he signed a monster contract. John has some ties into that one. A monster contract with the Buffalo Bills. Unfortunately, it looks like he's got a pretty significant knee injury that's going to keep him out not only for the rest of the season, but maybe even part of the offseason and into the season. Maybe. We'll see exactly how bad that is. Had surgery yesterday, flew down to Dallas to do it. But I guess the big question is, Von Miller was such a monstrous piece to this. By the way, in his background, he is also a Super Bowl MVP. I mean, the guy really is the real deal. He's not Lawrence Taylor, but he ain't that far behind him. So what I'm going to ask you is, does this change for Buffalo, Leslie Frazier, and all of that? Does it change enough to make you say, even though they are the number one seed right now in the AFC, are you concerned?
Well, you'd have to be a little concerned for all the reasons you mentioned. Super Bowl MVP, most sacks of any active player. He's a guy that they have to double team a lot. Mm-hmm. So without that, does it mean that they just run at that side of the field? Probably not. They've got a really stout defense. So I'm thinking, Pete, that this will hurt them, but I'm not saying it keeps them out of the Super Bowl. But to get to the Super Bowl, they got to get past Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. They haven't been able to do that. So I'd say that's really important. By the way, Pete and I talked with the agent for Von Miller, and can't give you any inside scoop right here, folks, but we may have either Vaughn or the agent on Rebels Edge Extra coming up in the next couple of weeks. He does a pass rush camp every year in Vegas in June, Pete.
Cool.
Where he shows up there and the Bosa brothers show up. I mean, every great pass rusher who's there, the Watts both show up.
Yep.
I mean, they really go and they share. They say, what's working for you? Well, this move is what I do, and blah, blah, blah. And it's really pretty cool. So this is not for, kids to attend necessarily. This is for the other pros to attend. But then they get a lot of the high potential draft picks for college showing up there too. It's a pretty cool thing. We'll be telling you more about that.
That's on the Rebels Edge Extra. That's what John said, extra. So it's, that's going to be a special one. We might even start implementing that in about once a week or so. Maybe that'll be a Friday segment.
Maybe,
that might be something. Fill up Friday a little bit too. Why not? Who knows? We'll see how it all works out. So next we're going to hit the quarterbacks. And here's what I wanted to talk about with John. There are teams in the NFL whose quarterbacks are playing good enough that they ought to be playoff teams, and they are not. And they're unlikely to change that the rest of this year because of the fact that their defenses are so bad. But that being said, I will give you this one. Derek Carr. Now, Derek Carr, Las Vegas Raiders, unbelievable. The guy's been a great quarterback for a long period of time. Fresno State, he got his old roommate back and his throwing mate back from Fresno State. Devontae Adams, it's awesome. Devontae Adams only has 1,100 yards and 12 touchdowns this year, and a lot of that because of the fact that, Derek Carr can trust him. Quarterbacks need trust. This guy has had an amazing year for a team that can't stop anybody. And I just say this, you want to know who those guys are and what they've got to do in terms of their teams, but I love what Derek Carr's been. He's still very positive. He still goes out there every single week, and he is slinging the ball all over the place. His numbers are off the chain. Take a look at it. He's pretty much top 5 or 8 in just about every single category that there is. What else do you got, John? Who do you like in that thing? Do you like that name, or is there anybody else?
No, I love that name. Of course, on teams on the losing side, Pete, I think maybe Jared Goff.
Yeah.
Because Goff, he's a Berkeley guy. For a cup of coffee, I was a Berkeley guy. My brother Paul played there throughout his entire career. Mm-hmm. Our dad played there. So we have real ties, our uncles. We have real ties to Cal Berkeley. But what I'll say is that he really showed when he was with the Rams, flashes of greatness, and then some problems too.
Yep.
And it's one of the reasons that they ended up making that big trade and taking Stafford from Detroit and giving Jared Goff to the Detroit Lions.
Yep.
That kid is looking better and better every week now, Pete.
He is.
And I think the players have bought into what the coach is selling. So, that would be another one that, that's a guy that was that close to Super Bowl status and, taking that big ring. And instead, they failed, and he ended up getting traded. He's up there in Detroit. I think underrated for a team that is not doing well. He is doing very well.
And unfortunately, the Detroit Lions defense is absolutely one of the worst in the entire NFL, or this team would be pretty scary right now with Dan Campbell leading this whole thing and the great job that Jared Goff has been doing. It's been phenomenal to watch him. He's finally getting a great year. He's getting some kudos from people. We're throwing it out to you as well because I agree with John. I think he's had a really solid year so far. We'll see how they close it up. Detroit, you never know. They've made a few moves of late, and they've won a few games. So, you know what? They're a fun team to keep an eye on as well.
Yep. Well, folks, thank you as always. Special rooftop Rebels Edge. We appreciate all of you joining us. I look forward to being here with Pete and the crew. We got 25 wonderful people downstairs that wanted to take their trading to the next level. We'll have more of these. These are the intimate ones where you can sit at lunch, each of us sitting at different tables. We've got a crew of like 6 of our best instructors and technical analysis. AJ Monte is here.
Yep.
Bill Johnson, Ryan Mastro. I mean, we got a big crew here, and people are loving it. You'll see more about how you could join for either San Diego or Napa in the coming months. So we'll have both of those on the calendar soon. Pete, I hope you enjoyed the evening last night.
Oh, boy. A little too much enjoyment the last 2 nights, let me tell you. I got almost absolutely slaughtered with the Kelsey Ballerini thing. And then last night, these guys poured a few more down on me. So hopefully I can recover from that. We got a big boat trip tonight. It's going to be great.
Yep. We're having dinner out on the Intercoastal and in the Bay, Biscayne Bay. Bang. You guys have a great one wherever you are. We'll see you on Monday for another Rebels Edge.